the monstera, rubber plant, pothos, peace lily, and ficus. Maybe you have one of these in your home. Well, congratulations. You're a part of Colonialism. Houseplants bring life to our homes, but why do we have them in first place? Is it for beauty, air purification, or maybe something else? Throughout history, plants have been symbols of wealth and power, reflecting humanity's relationship with nature. But how did these plants make their way from all over the world into our living rooms? The tradition of keeping plants indoors dates back thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, the wealthy cultivated papyrus, lotus flowers, and date palms in pots, believing they brought prosperity and spiritual significance. Gardens filled with these plants were seen as an extension of paradise on earth. Meanwhile, in China, the practice of bonsai was flourishing by the Tang dynasty. These miniature trees were not just decorative, but a symbol of harmony, discipline, and mastery over nature. Keeping plants indoors was a privilege reserved for the elite. In ancient Rome, wealthy citizens grew plants in elaborate peristyle gardens, often keeping citrus trees and exotic flowers in clay pots, reinforcing their social status. Having plants indoors was also here a sign of sophistication, a tradition that would continue for centuries. But the houseplants as we know them today wouldn't exist without European colonial expansion. The 15th to 19th century saw an unprecedented movement of plants across continents as European empires extracted botanical riches from their colonies. This plant trade was driven by both scientific curiosity and economic ambition. Wealthy European families built orangeries to house tropical plants brought back by explorers and botanists. Citrus trees, coffee plants, and spices, once exclusive to Asia, Africa, and the Americas, became prized possessions in European courts. Botanists such as Joseph Bank, who traveled with Captain Cook, and also Alexander von Humboldt, who explored South America, played major roles in expanding Europe's knowledge and exploitation of global plant biodiversity. One of the most infamous plant obsessions in history was the tulip mania in the Dutch Golden Age. Originally from Central Asia, tulips arrived in Europe through Ottoman traders and became a status symbol in the Netherlands. At its peak in the 1630s, a single rare tulip bulb could be worth more than a house, with the most expensive bulbs, such as the Semper Augustus, selling for up to 10,000 guilders, an amount that could buy you a luxury home in Amsterdam at that time. Even tulip seeds were valued and speculated upon. The craze became the world's first recorded financial bubble, with people selling off land, livestock, and entire businesses just to get their hands on the rarest tulips. But like all bubbles, it eventually bursted in 1637, just 7 years later, leaving many investors bankrupt. This was one of the earliest examples of speculative trading in history, showing how plants could become financial tools in addition to cultural symbols. Few people realize that plants have not only shaped economies, but have also been at the center of wars. One of the most intense plant-related conflicts was the fight over nutmeg. Native to the Banda Islands in Indonesia, nutmeg was so valuable in the 17th century that the Dutch and the British went to war over it. The Dutch-English rivalry for control of the spice trade led to violent clashes, culminating in the 1667 Treaty of Breda, where the British agreed to give the Dutch full control of the Banda Islands, in exchange for a much smaller island in North America, Manhattan. Yes, the very island that would become New York City was traded for nutmeg plantations. The Dutch maintained their monopoly by carefully controlling nutmeg production and even dipping the seeds in lime to prevent them from sprouting elsewhere. Eventually, the British smuggled nutmeg plants out, breaking the Dutch control and establishing their own plantations in Sri Lanka and the Caribbean. By the 19th century, Britain's global empire fueled an insatiable hunger for exotic plants. Botanists and plant hunters were sent to the colonies to collect rare species. Kew Gardens, founded in 1759, became the center of plant imperialism. Plants like the rubber trees from Brazil, tea from China, and orchids from Southeast Asia were taken, cultivated, and turned into profitable industries for Britain. The Victorians also had their own houseplant craze. The Terry Domania, the obsessions with ferns. This was fueled by British expeditions that planted ferns from colonies across the world, turning them into a fashionable home decor. Many famous figures shaped our love for houseplants. Carl Linnaeus, the Swedish botanist, revolutionized plant classification, making it easier for the European scientists to study and exploit foreign plants. Sir Joseph Banks, who I mentioned before, was also instrumental in bringing exotic plants from the Pacific to Britain. And then there's also Robert Fortune, who disguised himself as a Chinese merchant to steal tea plants and bring them to British-controlled India, forever altering the global tea trade. Houseplants aren't just history. They are still big businesses today. While the tulip mania may have been the world's first plant bubble, collectors in recent years have spent staggering amounts on rare houseplants. The record for the most expensive houseplant ever sold to a variegated monstera, which fetched $27,100 in an auction in New Zealand in 2021. But what makes it so valuable? Unlike regular monstera plants, this one had a rare white and green petalled leaves, caused by a genetic mutation. But there are also very famous and very expensive bonsai trees. For example, one of the most famous one is the Yamaki pine, a white pine bonsai that survived the Hiroshima atomic bombing in 1945. Originally gifted from Japan to the United States, it now resides in the National Bonsai and Penjing Museum in Washington, D.C. One of the most renowned places to witness these living relics is the Shuka-en Bonsai Museum in Tokyo. Founded by the legendary bonsai master Kunio Kobayashi, this museum is home to some of the world's most carefully maintained and prized bonsai trees. Many of the trees displayed are hundreds of years old, showcasing the dedication and artistry required to cultivate and sustain these miniature landscapes. Beyond Earth, plants play a vital role in space exploration. NASA has been experimenting with growing houseplants in space for decades, not just for food, but also for psychological well-being. Plants help recycle air, provide fresh oxygen, and even offer mental health benefits for astronauts during long missions. The Veggie Plant Growth System, a small greenhouse aboard the ISS, has successfully cultivated lettuce, radishes, and zinnias. These experiments are crucial for future Mars colonization, where astronauts will need to grow their own food in isolated environments. Many of today's most popular houseplants have colonial histories. The rubber tree was once part of British rubber industry in Southeast Asia. The pothos and monstera, native to tropical forests, were taken and cultivated for Western homes. What was once a symbol of imperial wealth is now an everyday part of our home decor. But the next time you water your plants, remember, the journey to your home is a story of conquest, exploration, and adaptation. So what kind of houseplants do you have in your home? And what historical topic should we cover next? Don't forget to comment on this video to help the algorithm, and leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Also subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And as always, this is HistoryCrafts, where history crafts itself.